If we actually practice autism acceptance, most autistic people's lives, they wouldn't be one long cycle of exhaustion and recovery. Classrooms, they wouldn't be built around one kind of brain and expecting everyone else to keep up. At home, we wouldn't punish autistic coping as bad behavior, and in the workplace, we would see burnout as a signal that something needs to change, not that proof that someone isn't trying hard enough. See, people, they care a lot, but that's not the problem. The problem is that we've mixed up being polite about autism with actually building environments where autistic people can even exist without falling apart. And those are completely different things. Now, I see this over and over again with families that I work with autistic adults, and even in my own life. Everyone is trying their best, but the environment is still built for a completely different kind of brain. Autism acceptance isn't about how nicely you talk about autism. It's about what you're willing to change so that autistic people don't have to live in a permanent state of recovery. And if that's what acceptance really is, then the question becomes what actually needs to change? And for a lot of autistic people, the answer shows up in these same three places over and over: school, home, and adult life. So let's start with school and learning environments.
And if we haven't met before, hi, I'm Alicia Troutwine. I am an autistic mom of four children, three who are also autistic. And around here, we talk about everything autism and the systems that we live within. So you're talking from schools to diagnosis to parenting to navigating life as an autistic adult. Now, I am an autism advocate, a speaker, and a writer. And everything that I share here comes from personal experience and conversations that I've had with families just like yours. So if you're ready for practical, easy to understand help along your autism journey, you're in the right place.
The first place that many autistic children are first misunderstood and worn down, well, it's school. See, in most schools, you don't really see autism acceptance built into the day. Now, you might see an inclusion poster on the wall or hear someone talk briefly about different learners. But the whole routine of the school day, it's built around one default type of brain. And that routine, it expects every single child to sit still, to switch instantly between tasks, and to tune out the chaos as if every single brain works the same way. And for an autistic student, that setup, well, it's not neutral. It causes them to be drained all day long from masking. Now, real autism acceptance in the classroom isn't just we're polite to the autistic kid. It's we assume that there's going to be different types of brains here, and what can we change in this room so that they don't have to mask all day just to get by and so that they can focus on their actual learning. And here's the thing, these changes, they don't have to be big. And often they're just small, practical choices that benefit not only the autistic child, but every child. See, for example, a teacher can give directions out loud, but also often leave them where students can refer back to them, like on a whiteboard or a checklist. And the classroom itself can have supports like headphones and fidgets or alternate seating. Now, these are things that are available at any time the child needs it, not as a reward though for great behavior. Another way is when it comes time for children to show what they've learned. One way that this can happen is that students might be allowed to type something instead of handwriting or vice versa, or maybe even talk through it. I will say though, the biggest change that can make the absolute most impact is how the adults react when a student is struggling. See, often when there's behaviors that don't align with what is considered the norm, we ask things like, well, what consequences will fix this? But autism acceptance is learning to ask, what's going on? What is too much for their nervous system right now? Are they overwhelmed? Are they confused? Maybe they're overloaded by sensory input. The kids being noisy around them, somebody tapping their pen, the lights, whatever the case might be. And then what we can do is we can adjust those so that they aren't forced past their limits, and then they can focus on learning instead. And here's the thing, you don't have to be a teacher to use that same lens. See, it's learning to shift from the thought of why are they acting like this to what is this behavior telling me about the environment and what could change there first. And that shift, it just doesn't stop at the classroom door. It follows us home. See, at home, many of us grew up hearing certain behaviors being labeled as bad long before anyone actually explained what they meant. For example, when an autistic child has a meltdown, people often just assume that's a tantrum, something that they can control. Or when they go into a shutdown and go quiet, Adults often assume that they're just being dramatic or they don't want to interact with people, not that they're struggling or this is their body's way of handling the situation. See, at home, acceptance starts when we see every behavior as communication instead of just assuming that it's disrespect or them acting out. And for many autistic children, by the time that they get home from school, they seem to explode out of nowhere. You're told that they had a great day at school, that they did their work, they got along well with others, there was no problem. But when you get home within a few minutes, you've got tears, yelling, maybe even full on meltdowns. And you're left wondering what could have happened in the last few minutes to cause it, what maybe you did wrong, and not realizing that it's what they've been holding on all day through school. It's because by the time they get home and to their safe place, they can't hold it in anymore. Now, this phenomena actually has a name. It's called after school restraint collapse. So, those little changes at school can make a huge difference to prevent that. But there's also things that you can do at home that can make a huge difference. So, for our family, once we learned this is what was happening, we learned to give our kiddos about 30 minutes to an hour just to decompress. We learned that they were often hungry, they weren't getting enough within the school day, or they were just overwhelmed, they were trying to hold together, and by the time they got home, it was just too much. So that 30 minutes to an hour, it was just time for them to grab a snack, go get some rest if they needed to, or if they're a child that needs more activity, we let them go play out back by themselves and just to unwind. And during that time, we didn't ask about their day. There was no expectation of homework during that time or chores, just we let them be because it gives them time to decompress. And when that's all over, they're typically ready to talk about the day, the good and the bad, asking open ended questions for them, and then move on to other activities like their homework or chores or just spending time with family. Another thing that we did that I know helps a lot of families is we made sure to have sensory spots. Now, every child is different and every home is different. So this can be a space in their room, a closet, corner of the living room, wherever. Just some place that they can go to be calm and to minimize that excessive sensory input. Now we had sensory toys in there like weighted blankets, some fidgets, some lower lights, so you can make like a little tent for them to go into. And according to the child, sometimes we'd have a tablet so they could watch their favorite PBS show, just something to keep them calm. See, what was the point of it though was that we focused on what each individual child needed to get back to that calm frame of mind before they were able to move on to the next part of the day. Now, the big shift here is for parents is to understand that this is not about spoiling them or giving into bad behavior. Because I know that's something a lot of us were taught. What it is, it's about acknowledging their needs and just giving them that opportunity to get back to calm. You do it every day when you drive home from work, or you need that 15, 20 minutes that you go hide in the bathroom after a long shift before you can deal with the kids. It's our body's way of decompressing before jumping into the next task. And at the very same time, I want to cover this too, it doesn't mean that you lack boundaries. See, autism acceptance doesn't cancel out where no is needed, but the difference is where you place the problem. So instead of assuming or saying something like, my child's too much, you start to wonder, is the situation too much for my child? Or is the demand bigger than what they can actually do right now? And here's the thing, those same patterns, this affects autistic adults as well. Now, for a lot of autistic adults, especially those of us who were missed or misdiagnosed in childhood, life becomes one long attempt to keep up with the expectations that were never really built for our brains. See, workplaces, they often act like professional means that you're always available, that you're totally fine with constant interruptions and small talk that you can't handle. And friendships, well, they can quietly expect you to be up for last minute plans over and over again. Even families sometimes label that rest that you need as laziness or treats the tools that you rely on as proof that you're not trying hard enough. Autism acceptance in adult life is often more about making your own accommodations and designing your life around the realities of your brain instead of what we're often told that the ideal adult should be like. Now, for many of us, that can show up in what type of work we choose to do. Now, you might lean towards roles that use your deep focus, pattern spotting, writing, or creative problem solving instead of jobs that are mostly small talk and chaos. Another way to provide yourself some support is just by being honest with yourself and the people closest to you about your social plans and understanding just how much that you can handle in a week before you crash out. So, not giving yourself so much to do that you can't have time to rest. Other ways is just like with kids, is making sure that you have those small supports in place. Things like noise canceling headphones, written scripts for hard conversation, reminders, timers. Those are all great things to help you. And the key here is to remember that using these tools, it's not a sign that you're failing or have failed, but rather as a way to make sure that you succeed throughout every task you do in life. And for myself, this has looked like choosing work where I can research deeply. I can write, I can create resources for families instead of some job that expects me to be on in a meeting 8 hours a day. So if you're an autistic adult, one act of acceptance this month could be looking at a single area where you're holding yourself to a purely neurotypical standard and asking, what would this look like if it was designed for my autistic brain? Now, that might turn into building in time to buffer after meetings, or answering messages in 1 or 2 blocks a day instead of all throughout the day, or giving yourself permission to say no to an event that you already know is going to wipe you out for days after. So when you look at all this together, the childhood, school, home, adult life, autism acceptance is not just about knowing that autism exists or saying the right thing. It's about changing the environment once you understand what autistic people actually need. So that can start with those small shifts in everyday life, can be pausing before you call an autistic trait a problem, or just asking what here is too much before deciding that the person is the issue. See, that's what autism acceptance actually looks like. Not a themed month on a calendar, but real changes that make life more livable for autistic people. Now, if you remember nothing else from this entire video, I want you to hold on to this one thing. Autism acceptance is not about how nicely you talk about autism. It's about what you're willing to change so autistic people can exist without paying the price. So this week, pick one thing and change it. Whether that's your language, asking a better question, or making a part of your home or workspace more autism friendly. And remember, autism acceptance isn't a theme for April. It's a blueprint for every day after.